Well, let's see what Leenock can do against MarineLorD with MarineLorD's favorite civilization, the French. It is a French mirror on Dry Arabia as we head to game number 2.
Parlez-vous français? No, I only speak war, which is what we're getting into here. MarineLorD versus Leenock. MLord already taking the lead and now into his OG signature Civ. Let's see if Leenock can pull someone out of the bag or if he's once again going to fall victim to the Frenchman.
Mon Dieu, what a matchup it is. Looks like the colors were flipped, but now we're good. MarineLorD is going to be with the color blue, and down south it is going to be Leenock with the color red.
And look at these spawns already. Fairly balanced on both sides, actually. The tree lines look pretty optimal. Gold is a weak point for MarineLorD if he's defending because it's on the forward and a little bit exposed on the north side. Also kind of awkward for Leenock. Luckily, he's in a French mirror, so he doesn't have to worry about getting tower rushed. But if he wasn't, this would be a little bit damning.
It's a difficult to wall base for both of these players. Probably slightly better for Leenock. He can at least wall to the edge of the map from the forest on the west. But especially for MarineLorD, walling his base is going to be difficult, even partial walling. And if you consider the fact that the deer is also out there in the open, both patches being close to one another, this opens up a lot of opportunities for Leenock to raid.
Yeah, I actually think Leenock got a much better spawn because of the deer. If you look around, you can see those tree lines that kind of give some defense points, whereas on MarineLorD's side, I hope you like open battlefield, sir, because that's all you've got when you try to gather on those deer. And in fact, they're so close together for Leenock, he could eventually just branch a TC there, right, near the tree line and play safe for that area. The only worry, of course, is going to be that stealth forest just north of that deer stack, but overall, you would definitely take your spawn over MarineLorD's any day of the week.
Easily. And MarineLorD, well, Leenock rather, he's going to find these double deer patches as well. He knows fully well that MarineLorD's food eco could easily be exposed here, because MarineLorD might also need to expand, but even if you place a TC in between those two hunts, it's not something that you're going to be super happy about. It's an alright TC, but it could be a lot better if the map generation was more generous to you.
Yeah, something that's kind of underrated, I think I mentioned it yesterday, I'm going to just say it again, is the idea of pushing deer. Like, this might be the game to do it for MarineLorD, because if you look at his deer stacks, there's one very close to the edge of the map. If he shoves the deer north, he'll be able to get a TC drop on the edge of the map. The reason these are good is they're very difficult to raid. So even French Knights, when they come in, they're predictable, you can quickly react and garrison, and it's not the type of position where Leenock wants to commit an entire army because it would expose his flank to go in with everything.
Yeah, it's still gonna be a tough spot for MarineLorD to defend. He's operating with 2 scouts, so does Leenock, so they're gonna have pretty decent line of sight over here, but MarineLorD chooses just to do some harassment on the gold miners. We talked about this, KP. Small differences matter in mirrors, so being able to slow down your opponent gathering gold has some value when it comes to night production at the beginning of Feudal.
It's more than that. It's about the night production, specifically what they can do when they're produced. By chipping each of these villages down, you make them 2 hits instead of 3. Remember, until you get that upgrade for the knights via the free upgrade for the blacksmiths, they can't 2-hit kill 50 health villages. They'd end up doing 48 damage.
Yeah, that's a big thing too. It makes your life a lot easier when it comes to trying to snipe villagers in Feudal, but looks like he also wants to force these villagers to leave the gold mine, because once you're done hitting each of those, you just want to make them go back to the TC. You don't want to lose a villager here if you're Leenock, so you'll have to pull them back, and that is some walking time, that is some idle time. It's a small thing, but it adds up over time.
Yeah, typically I think the optimal way to do this is you strike each villager once or twice, and then you start focus firing one down. The logic is that then your opponent has to send out a full health one, which you as a French spammer say, great, now I'm just going to hit that villager as well, because that's an additional villager that I can 2-hit with a knight later.
Indeed, that's the point. You want to keep damaging those villagers, every one that comes out there, so you can snipe them with the knights. But obviously, once you have done one hit on one of or all of those, you can just focus down one and force it back to the TC.
I feel so very English right now, sitting here sipping my green tea, smiling at the fact that at the end of this, the French will have lost. Oh wait, they would have won as well. Oh no, nah, that's ruined it.
Well,
okay, I guess if the Frenchman playing as the French losers, then I'm still very happy as an Englishman.
It's the French Civil War here for the time being, and we know that indeed one of the French players will win, the other one is going to lose in this one. There are no other way to put it.
You know, it's funny, like, we spend so much time watching these players, but we also spend so much time talking to these players. Like, they're always part of the community. I think, like, AOE4's pro scene is a lot more accessible than, say, other ones. And it means that you never end up in a situation where you root against someone, I feel like, right? It's always just... Anytime I want to be like, yeah, down with the Frenchman, I can't. But at the same time, Leenock on the other side, you guys... You get my point, right? You know what I'm talking about, Lidakor. It's just small, humble community. Everyone knows each other. Everyone loves each other. There's no hate.
No hate yet. That's the right way to say that.
You're right. Big money ahead of us in a month's time. We'll see if they're still friends afterwards.
Oh, MarineLorD popping out the first knight out here. Leenock is going to be on the defensive, it seems. He's going to hold his knight back, I believe. Indeed. He's going to try to focus down MarineLorD's knight. This is important because MarineLorD knows that Leenock is going to be the defender. And look at that. Many villagers. Many of those villagers might actually be one hit.
Well, there's only one way to confirm that. Ooh, yeah, you can't.
But the
There's
idle time...
no way you ever get that.
The idle time is already there. That's going to slow down Leenock's knight production, and that's a decent start for MarineLorD, who somewhat surprisingly goes for a super early spearman play.
Well, yeah, the interesting part is that MarineLorD went for spears, despite the fact he's the aggressor. Right now, Leenock's knights are all in his base. Leenock did go spearman as well. Makes more sense for him. I think MarineLorD just wants to try and keep this aggressive position and only use a few spears back at base. Something we have to keep in mind is that he needs to access the pocket ecos, and they're more open, i.e. the deer we talked about earlier, even more so when you're going for this play into the TC that has now been scouted out by Leenock. I think this is the point where Lee could get ahead by doubling down on aggression and not going for his own TC.
Yeah, he can't just play catch-up here. Like,
yeah, I think that's like the worst thing to do in mirror matchups. Like, oh, my opponent done something, I'm going to do it as well. Like, dude, don't dance monkey dance, all right? Be the master.
And he's going to have a barracks out there already. And it looks like he's just going to mirror what MarineLorD is doing. The problem is that he's going to be delayed. He's just now moving on to stone. MarineLorD is already doing that. And MarineLorD is going to have vision on this one too. So MarineLorD knows that Leenock is just following his footsteps.
And this is the tough part where, like, I still stand by what I said, that you need to get value out before you do this, because otherwise you're just playing from behind on the play. But to explain the reason why players do this, one, making additional TCs is way too easy. I've talked to multiple pros about this, but they all agree. It's kind of like such a ingrained part of gameplay right now. Additionally, building army over eco at an early point in the game like this is also, like, it's so much more difficult. Eco is always easier to scale, because usually you have a limit in terms of production buildings, and especially with pushing things like premium knights, you just can't escalate your count high enough, quick enough to punish a TC.
Yeah. The way you have to think about this one is that a French player gets an extra villager every 17 seconds with the expansion TC. So unless you're killing a villager every 17 seconds with the army you're making, you're actually going to start falling behind in villager count. And with the level that these players are playing at and with their ability to defend, it's next to impossible to keep killing villagers consistently every 17 seconds.
Yes, the way you have to look at this is not just a case of, oh, well, I mean, I could build military, and let's do the maths compared to his TC build and everything. The timing that matters is how long does it take you to go and use that military as well. It's so much easier to use TCs in economy because they're just gathering straight away, whereas military struggle. But right now, there's going to be a struggle over this TC expansion from Leenock because he blinked later than MarineLorD. MarineLorD gets the opportunity to pounce and does have the numbers in his favor right now. We'll wrap around with the spears. Limited damage onto the villagers, but will hurt him a little bit. One or two villagers likely to go down, but overall TC will go up. Consider this though, MarineLorD got his up with 0 harassment onto him.
That's the big thing. He managed to pick off a villager, also managed to pick off a knight here from Leenock, so the value was there. Although it looks like MarineLorD actually has a slower TC expansion than Leenock does, so at the end of the day, we might still see an even villager count because of that.
I think it should be still in favor of MarineLorD, even more so when he's doing this, which is still scout, by the way. And you'd think that MarineLorD would have found that TC timing suspicious from Leenock. You'd think he would suspect that he's being snitched on right now. But no, the blue French still don't realize that every move is being watched by a nosy git to the north of their stone outcropping.
Yeah, but this time around, Leenock won't mirror the moves of his opponent. He's not going to go for the third TC, instead just stays with 2.
Yeah, because this is where it gets a bit too greedy. Like, realistically, what does MarineLorD get with this third TC? And he gets villages, which, you know, that's great. But usually that's not what a TC expansion is about on its own, right? Like, the villages is, of course, a big part, but it's like, what do I now do with these villages? The only thing that MarineLorD can do with these villagers is harvest wood on small wood lines.
Looks like MarineLorD actually gets a confirmation about that scout snitching on him, but it's gonna be a little too late. Might actually get the kill. Nope.
Nah, not even close. It's just you wouldn't be able to get in time. Not enough villagers still gathering food underneath your TC at this stage, so it doesn't work out. But once again, I just got to emphasize that third TC from MarineLorD, it's going to be a villager booster, but in terms of efficiency per villager, like it's a hit. It doesn't add up, right? It's just wood. And right now, MarineLorD doesn't actually have a use for wood, unless he's planning an archery range transition.
Well, he's going to start walling himself up, so he's going to find a way to burn that wood.
Oh, sure, but that feels like you're burning that wood, right? Like in the truest term in that situation, because I know you're up against knights and you feel like you need to contain yourself somewhat, but unless you're going for an archery range play, I kind of wonder if you would have just got more value out of playing the TC to the gold and berries on the north side.
Yeah, Leenock actually has really good vision over here, and this is probably one of the bigger advantages he has over MarineLorD. MarineLorD didn't really have a lot of eyes set on Leenock's base, whereas for Leenock, he knows every single move that his opponent is making right now.
Yeah, it's actually interesting that MarineLorD kind of had the aggressive posture and then just decided to defend. But then again, he decided to be a greedy son of a gun. He went for the third TC. So now he has to defend. Like, it isn't a choice you have anymore. It's something you have to do to survive.
Yeah, but it's risky. He doesn't really have a ton of knights on the field. Leenock is building up his numbers.
I mean, but that's why he's building the walls, right? Like, he has to be defensive. He can't be aggressive anymore.
Yeah, he can wall the left side, not so much on the right side. In fact, knights might even sneak in to the left over here.
Whoops.
And if you can chip away with a couple of villagers, Leenock is going to be more than happy. He's down by 8. Kills a couple here. He's going to offset the difference that the third TC made so far.
There's a requirement in doing that, though. For all that great vision we touted that Leenock has, he doesn't know where the TC is, so...
He doesn't even need to. He doesn't want to dive the TC. He probably wants to go for lumberjacks on the north.
I mean, you say that, like, at this stage, that TC extension should have too many villagers, right? So, like, finding these TCs is actually good, because one of the issues the French have is because these TCs produce quicker, they actually go past the threshold of what you can protect faster than other zips.
But do you want to dive under the TC with those precious knights, especially with some of them being damaged? I feel like the reason why he tries to hit the wood line is because he knows that he can get away with minimal damage on those knights.
I mean, at this stage, you've got Chivalry and Undermesh. So, like, if you're not capable of diving a secondary TC, what do these knights really do, right? I agree that if you can get the wood, it feels good, but it's just so difficult to catch the home wood line off guard when it's on the retracted side of your opponent's base.
I am actually wondering whether Leenock only has just now learned about the third TC. Yes, he saw the stone mine, but he was so slow with the escalation, and now he's rushing everything. Like, he's going super aggro, as if he just now learned that his opponent is on 3 TCs and he needs to make a move.
But if he only just noticed, that's a huge mistake from Leenock. Like, kind of, and I don't want to, like, be mean to him, but inexcusable at his level of play. Like, he should know by now that when you're watching the stone outcropping that long, when you're watching villagers still go on it, you should know a third TC's coming. So I have to imagine Leenock knew about this TC. I think he just delayed his timings because he needed to extend his own military production first. Maybe he also confidently thought he could snipe a lot of eco to offset that difference, but so far that's just not the case.
Yeah, he's up 10 knights though, and that is going to give him a nice edge. He could even try to burn his way through those walls. MarineLorD mostly just operating with spearmen and archers. Archer numbers relatively even between the two. If Leenock can find some angles with those knights, he could do massive damage. There is nothing that MarineLorD can do to catch up with 12 knights when he only has 3. Spearmen are just too slow for this, but for that, the knights need to find an angle first.
Yeah, it does feel like the archer count isn't actually high enough for Leenock to do anything here. Looking at the comps, it's kind of worrying that MarineLorD has gotten away with 3 TCs and probably has the stronger army right now. Can't believe I just said that. I mean, it's a lot of spears. Like, that's the thing you have to keep in mind. That the archers, like, Leenock went all in on aggression, and he doesn't even have the archer count in his favor.
I think if you look at a direct battle, you probably favor MarineLorD. But if Leenock can just chip away with these villagers here, that's the value of those knights.
Absolutely. That's he has to do that, though. Like, that's the thing, and that becomes predictable, which is why I'm expecting more walls from MarineLorD. Just because at that stage, he can wall himself in, he can continue the same composition, and he can look towards Castle Age probably a lot quicker than Leenock can.
Oh, Leenock. Massive mistake here, though.
I mean, you say mistake, but like, what was his alternative choice here? You can't afford to wall this. Like, you need everything to the front line, so you haven't got the ability to wall at home. You can't leave troops defending either because you've now labeled yourself the aggressor.
Yeah, I agree. I think the bigger problem was that he was a little too slow reacting, lost a couple of villagers. He had a tower nearby, but he was a little too slow garrisoning, and this knight is just a pain in the rear so far.
That's what I love from MarineLorD. Is like he's noticed that all attention is going to one location. Like Leenock, despite the fact he's got a lot of knights, he's not playing French knights, right? He's playing them like they're a front line of an army. And it can be strong, but I still think it's the suboptimal way to play a lot of these civs right now. Like, the best way to use heavy cavalry is to raid. He's just struggling to find raiding opportunities.
Partly because the point of focus is at the wrong place. He's trying to hit the left side. But if you think about that, we talked about this at the beginning of the game, the real vulnerable part of MarineLorD's eco is the right side. Both deer patches there, and it's an open field. And it, to a certain extent, is, to me, very surprising that he's not going to target the right side. Now, MarineLorD has condensed most of his eco to the north, but still, there's a lot of damage potential on the right side, possibly a lot more than there is on the left.
One of the tough parts is every time Leenock shows up at wall, it takes him so long to get through that MarineLorD can react. As this continues, though, Leenock will breach quicker. He's about to be up to 20 knights. They don't take long to torch through, and you can already see the impact of this. Gets in, strikes a few villages, and gets out. MarineLorD, although he has a clear eco lead, there is an issue arising, and I think that's why MarineLorD is likely to start doubling down on knights to try and replicate what Leenock is doing.
He needs to. He needs something that catches those knights around there. For the time being, Leenock is still the aggressor, still intensifying the raids, but he's down by 22 eco now. He needs to do a lot more damage than this, but he's also gotten a 3rd TC, so he won't fall behind more in terms of villager numbers.
Yeah, he's gone catch-up mode now, but he's done so pretty delayed, which means MarineLorD should be able to access Castle quicker at this rate. When you consider the fact that they've now invested the same amount in TCs, and then also MarineLorD has spent less on his military. I mean, right now, actually, MarineLorD kind of needs to get his positioning on point, because getting caught on the left side like that and getting his production exposed gives good trades over to Leenock that he needs. March out, though. Wrapping around, the numbers here do not favor Leenock. Leenock is going to be trapped, forced to take a fight. The weakness, of course, of this 50% cavalry comp means that only they can run away. And they ran far away from the main battlefield, which is why MarineLorD is going to turn this into a rout. And if he continues south side, he might spot the fresh 3rd TC.
This feels like an English game, not even a French game here for MarineLorD. 34 spearmen, 29 archers on the field. And the problem for Leenock is, as you said, he never really started massing archers behind this. He has a large amount of knights, and as long as he's the one aggressing and he's the one raiding, it's fine. But the moment MarineLorD can become the aggressor, Leenock has no tools to stop that army.
Yeah, and Leenock, he sees an opportunity to go in. He needs to be faster. He needs to force MarineLorD all the way back, because MarineLorD could probably do more damage than Leenock's capable of, just through sheer torch. Villagers are going to be forced to garrison. Leenock forcing a lot of idle time as he darts back towards the woodline on the north side, realizing it's all condensed there. Should be able to do some damage, but meanwhile, when you look across at Leenock's side, there's a movement in towards the deer and also towards the secondary TC. With this many torches out, they can smoke a TC.
This might come in too late for Leenock. In fact, this could be even worse than that. Only the knights inside. MarineLorD can just make a couple of spearmen back at home to slow this down. He is going to take some casualties. The problem is that Leenock himself, as you said, might even suffer from more casualties because this TC is a gunner.
This is why people have moved towards spears. MarineLorD has a better read on his comp. I actually think spears is the way to go in French mirrors. It's just so effective because eventually you reach this point where even if your opponent won't fight you directly because they have mobility, you can go in and kill buildings. What's one of the big weaknesses of the French in the early game, Lidakor? They cannot kill buildings.
Yeah, like beyond that 15-minute mark, mass spearman works really well, especially if Leenock doesn't have a sufficient amount of archers to take this fight with, and now those Vols are paying for their price. Knights are trapped inside, and they barely are able to do any damage. MarineLorD started with like 110 villagers at the beginning of that raid. He's still at 108, barely any damage done.
I want you to keep in mind that MarineLorD done all of this while setting up a farm transition as well. This is the other power of the spears. Like, if your opponent is massing knights, you're massing spears. The difference in cost here, 80 resources versus 240 per unit. And that's why it matters for that whole idea of torching, right? Like, they do the same amount of damage. Sure, a knight lasts longer, but I'd rather have more damage than a tankier unit because I'm going to lose less long-term when I try to dive these TCs. That's what he's doing again. In onto another, with the Rams as well. 3rd TC soon to go down, so Leenock relegated down to 1 again, and still finding himself over 20 villages behind MarineLorD.
This is the balance of the French mirror. As long as you're the one defending with your spears, you struggle a lot. You can't catch those knights. But the moment you become the aggressor, there are just no tools for a player heavily invested into the knights to stop you.
Yeah, it's death by shivving. I mean, this is the thing that people have noticed. The Feudal has moved away from qualitative solutions to quantitative solutions. They just give you more options because it's very difficult for someone to escalate to a comparative count, and then also it's the flexibility you get when it comes to hitting buildings that we're seeing. It just makes the difference. Then there's also body blocking on top of it, right? When we see mass horsemen, you get so many more options from quantity versus quality.
And speaking of quantity, MarineLorD is up to 81 army over here. He actually bumps into the knights.
Yeah, he might bump into a lot of long spears at this rate. Looks like he dodges out just in time, but you can see how desperate he is for a fight that's beneficial. He's not going to find it. And I think what happened here, Lidakor, is Leenock was prepping for Castle Age into a Rule Institute boom with 20+ knights.
Likely.
But MarineLorD read it perfectly.
Exactly. He tried to raid his way back into the game knowing that he's behind in villager count and then just shield him for Castle Age using that. But MarineLorD raided well, and now he's turning on the screws. And look at this. MarineLorD might even beat him to Castle at this pace.
And you gotta give MarineLorD so much credit for like the poker face, right? A lot of players, when those knights go into their base, would have ran home. He did not. He understood that French mirrors are about trades. It's not a matter of stopping yourself from losing things. It's a matter of taking more away from your enemy. And he's definitely done that in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if this tech up comes through and Leenock just calls it there, because it's already looking impossible to hold. How do you hold an entire age behind?
Yeah, it feels next to impossible. Now, Leenock is up to 44 archers himself. The problem that he's facing is that MarineLorD has comparable numbers, and those will be Castle Age upgraded very soon. The Spearmen also getting the extra +2 attack once they reach Castle Age, because you already have a Blacksmith up for MarineLorD, so they will become instantly more valuable than they are in Feudal. You don't even need to wait for Castle Age upgrades.
Yeah, Leenock's looking at that kid whose party finishes at 10, and MarineLorD's that kid bragging about the fact they're going all night here, right? There's not enough room in these houses for the Red French anymore to come across to the blue base. And it just feels like this is the beginning of the end. Like, tech up complete, knights are in again, but guess what? Once again, you're not going to kill enough. And once again, it doesn't even matter if you actually catch the villagers, because the trade on the other side is going to be better. This is your main base. This is everything to you. Meanwhile, MarineLorD is spread so wide, you can only shut down about a third of his economy with this many knights.
Yeah, look at that. So much idle time on Leenock's eco. Even if Leenock kills 20+ villagers, he's gonna be behind in terms of villagers and also in terms of Castle Age timing, and he's gonna have to pull the plug on the operation, fall back home. But the only thing he's gonna find there is gonna be Veteran Spearman soon. In fact, his starting TC is not being burnt down. That's one of the 2 landmarks he only has, so he has to fight this one right here, right now.
He has no food, Lidakor. This is all of his food that's getting shut down here. He's Oliver Twist right now. Please, sir, please. Well, I'm sorry, but MarineLorD, he put his music up to max. He can't hear your pleads. He doesn't hear or know mercy anymore. He'll move in, clean up the villages, all forced to repair the TC. Ram is meanwhile working away on the School of Cavalry, and this is looking absolutely chalk. Despite the heavy raid of knights, more damage is being done in Leenock's base by no knights.
Oh, this is so terrifying for Leenock. He needs to keep those landmarks alive. He's gonna send in his knights. He might even clean this up, but what's the price he's paying for this one? His food eco was destroyed. He's down to 60 villagers, only 1 age behind. He's paying too big of a price here for his survival.
I am surprised he's holding on. I don't know if it's just he's been watching a cool anime series recently and saw someone come back, or delusion, but whatever it is, it's reached its limits. Leenock will call GG. MarineLorD will keep the pattern going of MLord wins in the MarineLorD versus Leenock's.
And with that, MarineLorD moves into the semifinals of the last September weekly out here. One of the more successful weekly performance takes down Leenock 2-0 here in the quarterfinals.
I mean, it's a tough one. Like, you look at the way this is being played, I think there's just still kind of an issue with how Leenock kind of approaches the matchups of MarineLorD. And I don't think it's necessarily him playing terrible or anything. I think it's just MarineLorD has a better read. He understood that when his opponent goes in, he doesn't need to be forced to react.